This is one in a series of talks about the JonesOklahomaCemetery Cemetery in Jones, Oklahoma. Together, these talks highlight the cemetery projects that Allison Land and David Jones are working on. For this presentation, David will narrate, and the topic will be the JonesOklahomaCemetery.us website. This is the home page for JonesOklahomaCemetery.us. At the top of the page are some explanatory notes. The notes explain that the website is associated with the Jones, Oklahoma Cemetery and lists the things that the website does. And that's what we'll be talking about today. There's also a button that provides even more notes. When we click on the Notes button, we get this PDF page. If you use the program, it's worth printing and reading all of the notes, but we won't do that right now. Let's explore the home page a little more. There are two panels. The one on the left is labeled Select Person. The one on the right is Confirm Selection and Create Report. There are two buttons to create reports near the bottom of the panel. Let's go back to the left panel. There are some instructions at the top, and then several boxes and buttons. The primary control is the list of names. The names are all of the people buried in the Jones Cemetery. Click on a name to select it. There is a scroll bar on the right side of the list, and it's possible to scroll and find the desired name. The other boxes and buttons are optional, but may be helpful in finding the desired person. There's an alphabet list. You can click on a letter in this list to jump to that portion of the alphabet. Along the top is a box labeled Search Name. You can type in a person's name and click the Search button. The default is last name, but there are three options, and you may also choose first or maiden name to search by. Scroll until you see the person's name in the list and then click on it. That brings up some information about the person in the right panel. That information may help confirm that you have selected the correct person. Also on the right panel are two buttons. Each button performs some action for the selected person. If you click the Relative List button, you get a list of relatives. The list tells each relative's name and relationship to the selected person. So we see the selected person, Claude Jones, at the top of the list. The relationship is self. Next is Dorothy Jones, Claude's wife. Then Jess and Till Jones, Claude's parents. And then after that, all the rest of the relatives that the program can identify. In the next column, the program has a plot description if the relative is also buried in the Jones Cemetery, or the cemetery and city if they aren't buried in Jones. Note the right column labeled Map Key. We'll see the map key numbers again on the last page in the report. Let's look at a couple of the map keys. Claude Jones is the primary person, and his map key number is 1. Claude's wife Dorothy also has map key 1. Claude's parents, Jess and Till, have map key 2. And there are many other map key numbers listed below. Claude has enough relatives buried in the cemetery that his list of relatives is 2 pages long, and this is the second page. This is the last page of the report. It's an aerial photo of the cemetery. North is to the top, and Hiawassee Road is along the left side of the picture. Wilshire Boulevard is along the bottom, although that's not shown here. You can also see the mausoleum, the white rectangle here, and the gazebo, the green octagon, is here. The white squares with red borders have numbers in them. The numbers correspond to the map keys that we saw on the previous 2 pages. So these white squares show where all of the person's relatives are buried. Remember that Claude and Dorothy had map key number 1? We see that square number 1 is here, above the door to the mausoleum, and Claude and Dorothy are buried in the mausoleum. The square with map key number 2 is here on the left center of the cemetery, and that is where Claude's parents are buried. In summary, this tool allows someone to identify all of the relatives and see where they are buried. Back to the main page of the website. In addition to the relative list button, there's a button for genealogy file. If you press this button, the program will create a file that you can import into a genealogy program to create a family tree. The file is in JEDCOM format, and JEDCOM is a generic format that almost all genealogy programs can use. When you press the genealogy report button, this page opens. Towards the top, the page has a default JEDCOM file name that you can use or change if you prefer. The bottom fields gather information that will be embedded in the JEDCOM file. This information isn't required, but the JEDCOM standard provides them so that if you share family information with others, there will be details of the source of that information. When you are happy with everything, click the Submit button to create the JEDCOM file. After you have a JEDCOM file, you can port it into a genealogy program. In this case, we have imported it into a program called Family Tree Maker. On the left is a list of relatives that we've imported, and on the right is part of the family tree. You can see that Claude Jones' name is highlighted. He's the selected person. And in the right panel, Claude's ancestors are shown in family tree format. If we click the Person tab, then this page opens with additional information about Claude. Family Tree Maker also shows a little leaf in the upper right. That means the program has figured out who Claude is and has additional information about him available. If we click on the leaf, we get a listing of that information. The first item is U.S. World War II enlistment records. We have the option to merge that information into the family tree. This family tree is only a start, and there are limitations. For example, it doesn't have sources, and naturally it doesn't have living people. But it might be a useful jumpstart for someone just getting started in genealogy, or it might be a check for someone's existing family tree. One quick note. The JEDCOM file that we created is generic and a universal format. Here we've imported it into a different genealogy program called Legacy with the same information. That concludes our quick review of the JonesOklahomaCemetery.us website. Thank you.